At least 3 states have lashed out at the federal government after it cancelled 50 infrastructure projects following a review which recommended the axing of dozens more. Let's go to our Victoria political reporter, Simon Love. Simon, quite a variety of responses around the nation today.
It certainly is, Kieran. This is the infrastructure restructure that's having a ripple effect right around the nation. The 90-day review that turned into a more than 200-day review from the Federal Infrastructure Department recommended that 82 projects be scrapped from federal funding. Now, the government has said that they will only axe 50, 12 of them here in Victoria, many right around the country. So we've started to hear in the last couple of hours from New South Wales and from WA. The project's axed over in the Western state, with close ties to resource ports, and also some interesting projects on the chopping block in New South Wales, given there's rail links between Sydney and Newcastle, and a road project right near the new Western Sydney airport. And that has prompted Daniel Mookhey, the Treasurer in that state, to fire off this furious response.
When the Minister said that the Commonwealth would back projects that are contracted, we expect her and her government to stick to its word. It's clear that New South Wales and its government has been talking to the Commonwealth, but they haven't been listening.
The state government's deeply disappointed with the fact that that the federal government will be withdrawing. We know, compared to other states, we're probably not being dealt with as harshly.
The infrastructure cuts announced this morning by the Federal Infrastructure Minister are a body blow to Queensland. Queenslanders will be forced to wait longer in traffic, drive on more dangerous roads and suffer from a higher cost of living. My message to the Federal Minister is simple. Do not try to rope us into your bad decisions.
There appears to be some confusion on behalf of the Queensland Government about this, but there are no cuts to Queensland at all. There are no cuts.
Yeah, it's been a bad week for the federal government, no doubt about it, on a few different fronts. This is one of them. And I guess let's hear if there was any positive news out of Victoria where you are. Was there anything better? Because right now you look at those other Labor governments and it's just been all one way and a bit of a debacle.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, out of this review, 12 projects axed, and there's some pretty high-profile ones here in Victoria. So the government here had every right to have a crack at the feds, but it seems that they didn't want to, instead trying to highlight what occurred under the previous Morrison government. Now, the big contention here is the money allocated to airport rail link. $5 billion from the feds have been confirmed. The state wants that project to go ahead, but there's a stalemate with the airport here. Because the airport wants an underground station, whereas both the state government, the coalition here too, and the federal government want it above ground. And in question time today, John Prosciutto went after Jacinta Allen on a number of the projects that have been axed, but Labor took the opportunity to remind the state coalition that one of those projects that have been axed happened to be committed by the former federal treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, whose seat overlaps with John Prosciutto in Hawthorn.
The federal government said that the lack of detailed business cases was the reason for the withdrawal of funding for Victorian projects. Why can't the Victorian Labor government manage money and manage major projects?
The Camberwell Road, Monteith Avenue, Redfern Road intersection upgrade, that project was at the front door of the former member for Kooyong's office. That's how that project made the list, Speaker. That's how that project made the list.
So Jacinta Allen opting to make light of the situation there. I think privately, speaking to some MPs off camera today, they're a little bit frustrated that a number of these key projects, particularly Geelong Fast Rail, have been axed by the federal government. That's one that would be crucial, particularly to a number of seats here in Victoria that Labor holds. Even the federal member for Corio, Richard Marles, no doubt would have personal views about that. But Catherine King says she still wants to work with the airport about the rail link and some of those other projects here in Victoria, working with the government too.
I am the planning minister for airports, so the Victorians are quite right. I'm going to have to approve a planning application at some point. But I also want to work with Victoria and the airport to actually work this out.
Catherine King has duck-shoved the responsibility for making the tough decisions about which projects are going to go ahead and which aren't in the face of flooding our nation with another 1.5 million people to the state governments.
So the question is, will Melbourne ever get an airport rail link, Kieran? It's one city that in Australia that doesn't have one, and it's certainly been talked about for many years. Seems the federal government is keen for that to happen, but the airport and probably the two governments need to sit down and nut this one out.